morning, y'all. We got the usuals in here. Jacob, shout out. AR, shout out. Roaster, shout out. Happy you guys are with us, man. Tex Homer here with Paul Wadlington. We are going to be discussing part 2 of the Georgia Bulldogs. But first, guys, we have a promo going right now during silly season. Sprint to National Signing Day, the coaching carousel, all the transfer portal craziness. $1 gets you 7 days. It's going to be pretty exciting, man. All of our recruiting arm is underwater right now in National Signing Day and getting everything ready. There should be some cool things that happens, maybe some non-cool things. Go to IT and find out what Justin and Eric and Charlie are saying so you can stay up to date on all our recruiting latest. On today's show, quick Texas A&M thoughts from Paul. Just a little light victory lap. Georgia offense, Georgia defense once again, and then instead of opponent games of interest, we'll go through the conference championships and kind of take a look at those and hear what Paul has to say and if he likes the lines or not. Paul, what's up, dude?
Silly season sale. I wish one of us had a lisp.
I know. It would have been mean. It's pretty crazy, man. National Signing Day is nuts behind the scenes.
What do you mean our recruiting's underwater? What do you mean by that?
No, I said our recruiting writings are underwater, having to just like balance 1,000 things. Yeah, no.
I was going to say, actually, there's a lot of drama going on.
No, it's just you got to be so on it, these last couple of days, especially in the NIL era. So I just know that those guys are busy as hell right now.
We literally have guys decommitting. We've got 5 stars that we're suddenly like a name we haven't even heard of all season. Yep. Suddenly we're in like one of the 2 finalists. It's just crazy.
Dude, it's crazy right now, man. Shout out to the recruiting guys.
Time to get subscribed. It's right now. I mean, the football's kicking ass. It's going to be. We're playing for the national title, the SEC title. Recruiting is just going full throttle, and if you like the soap opera of recruiting, the drama it's All My Children and General Hospital times 10.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, Paul. We got to talk a little bit after the post game, but how are you feeling a couple days removed from beating Texas A&M? I bet you still like it, right?
Pretty good. I'm for it. I thought about it, decided that it's better to beat them than to not beat them. It's also better to crush them than to not crush them, which Texas did, despite what the score says. Hey, I got to say, if you have Aggie work colleagues, Aggie friends, Aggie family members, now is the time to start working subtly on their paranoia and their natural defensiveness. Because as thoroughly as Texas whipped A&M on the field, there is a nascent Aggie movement being nurtured on the internet, which says that if Le'Veon Moss had played, they win this game. Also, the T-Sips got 2 touchdowns reversed by a crooked official. And then Andrew Makuba, I don't know if you noticed, but he killed an Aggie player on the field.
Yes. Yeah, that was clearly targeting. One of the most brutal shots I've seen in all of football.
The Aggie player died.
Yeah, that's true.
The T-SIP officials covered it up. Yeah. So now is the time not to argue with them, but to subtly agree and say, hey, man, we run, you know the kind of stuff we do. You know how we operate.
They shouldn't have let us in. You were right.
They let us in. We're going to cheat. We're going to pay people. That's how we roll. And the results on the field, you guys were so close to winning the game. You just don't change anything. You guys are so close. You're just one Le'Veon Moss knee injury away from blowing us out, maybe.
Yeah. That's what I love about A&M, man. Like the message board fanship of A&M. It's just they're the most conspiratorial group I've ever seen. And that's the most A&M thing ever, man. Like I love that refs were involved. I love that they were Le'Veon. They just reality is tough for them, man. And you can't live in A&M reality. You have to build this protection mindset, or else you go insane or not be an A&M fan.
Well, I wrote in the post game, and you guys, if you guys want to read great analysis, go to Inside Texas. Take advantage of the silly season sale. And I was writing, both the analysis and also some, stuff to amuse people. But also, I think Elko, if you watched his post game press conference, he's a real football coach. He's extremely honest.
Yep.
And he used words like they annihilated us.
Yep.
I think at another point he said they destroyed us at the line of scrimmage. That's just factual, right?
Yeah.
I think he might be too honest for A&M because if you think about who the Aggies built personality cults around, it was kind of BS artists, the Jackie Sherrills, the Jimbo Fishers. those are the guys that really capture their imagination because they appeal to Aggie surreality, right?
Yeah.
R.C. Slocum, Mike Sherman, they're just football coaches. And ultimately, that's not appealing to Aggies because they're not going to weave a tale. Like they're just going to be like, yeah, hey, we didn't play good ball today. We got beat. Here's what happened. We got to get, they want to hear Jimbo Fisher say, help is coming. These current players didn't execute. I had the perfect ball. These guys are betraying me every Saturday. Or Jackie Sherrill with his weird, that guy was a legit borderline sociopath, if you know anything about him. So, yeah, I think that Elko, unless he can change or alter some of that mindset and that culture, I think he's actually a good coach. I think he's ultimately not going to be successful because he's not telling them the tales that they want to hear.
He doesn't please the base.
No.
Yeah, I like Elko too. And I thought he was very realistic. That's the problem, though. If A&M can just accept reality, that's step one into becoming a legit team. They just have to push away from this concept of like, remember when we were bad for that 12 years? It took about till year 5 when we actually realized it. It was like we were like, yeah, that was an off year, dude. That was weird. Okay, we got these guys coming back. And then year 5, you're like, and now A&M's been doing it for about 70, 80 years, which is a little different. But it even took our fan base a little while. But that's
I do have to say the thought leaders that sort of talk to the fans or level with them.
Yeah,
Texas fans. I mean, like I'm pretty mean to delusional Texas fans.
Yeah,
who say stupid stuff.
Yeah,
I don't support their delusions. That's not my role. I don't have to. I'm not put on this earth to like augment your mental illness so that we'll have a better exchange. My job is to tell you, like, everything you're writing is nonsense. Mac Brown is not going to turn it around. We have to move on.
Yeah.
And people, oh, but he won this. And what about Colt's injury? And, it's like, hey, man, you deal with reality today. Reality today is we're not a competitive football program. And we're headed down a long, dark walk unless we make some, irrevocable changes. And those kinds of conversations don't really happen, at least with that degree of honesty, I don't think.
Yeah, and that's what you have to do in order to win again.
Agreed.
They'll fire Elko before he gets going. I need to see what he does. I mean, 8-4 in year 1, man. Not a bad thing. But it was a light schedule. So we just got to see, man. Like I think
the 8-4 was they lost their last 3, right?
Yeah, and they're like, well, we went 1-4. I'm like, I don't count New Mexico as you got to win in November. I mean, you lost every game in November.
Yeah, that feels different, right? I mean, A&M, for a decent part, just because about the schedule fell, a decent part of the SEC schedule, they were number 1 in the SEC. They were leading the league, right?
Yeah.
And then as it all fleshes out and they're like, 6th place or 7th place. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And Texas, unfortunately, numero uno, sitting on top of the standings at 7-1. So
it's gotta be like, if you empathize for a second and try to just put yourself in that position, dude, it's so funny.
Can you imagine you got in a fight with a guy and he beat you up, and then you trained for 13 years?
Yeah. And you go to like the best gym. You join the best
guy
gym.
Was like, the guy that beat you up is eating jelly donuts and watching Netflix, and then you fought again and the guy beat your ass worse.
Yeah.
Like that's what A&M thought they did in the SEC. They've been training and preparing.
They thought they got into the number one dojo, and they've been training with the best of the best, and that would help them.
That's right. We stormed their dojo and showed them once again that Aikido does not work against boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Those videos are hilarious, by the way, when those fake martial artists have to like fight a UFC fighter, and it's always so brutal.
Bullshido.
Yeah, exactly. Bullshit.
Yeah, it's the best. They're the best tapes in the world, especially the ones that actually believe it.
Yeah,
you could see the shock on their face.
Yeah,
I was like, he hit me.
Yeah, I like those people the most, though. The ones that actually believe it are way cooler. Yeah, they're way cooler than like the con men that are like charging $50 a session to poor people not understand what's going on. All right, so we're about 10 minutes.
We did our psychological analysis.
I was going to say, we're good. We're happy we won. That was fun. I also didn't feel like, which is good, I don't feel like the players have been victory lapping as much as us. I felt like they were kind of hey, all right, conference championship, which I think is good because it's easy to get kind of tied to this and want to revel in it. I feel like the fans are doing that, but I don't feel like the team's doing that much with social media.
I'll say this: Sark has the right mindset in these guys because they didn't do that for OU either.
I agree.
And the reason is
because Georgia's next.
Well, Georgia was next in both cases.
Yeah.
But also, OU kind of sucked. Like, you kick someone's butt, and in the case of Texas OU, it showed in the score, right? Yeah. The disparity. You just move on. Like, with A&M, yeah, it was 17-7. That game was 34-0 effectively, right? It just didn't work out that way because of a couple of miscues. So, on the line of scrimmage, which I watched intently, especially on the rewatch, A&M just got mauled.
Dude, I mean, I did a rewatch too.
And as always, Homer, whether it's an Iowa State's guy that was yappy last year or Sooners that are yappy this year, the Trey Zune, the tackle for A&M, the guy who chats the most is the first to tap out inevitably in these games.
So weird.
It's so funny.
Was it Zune that Broughton put in hell? Was that the one that he just made collapse to his knees on that one?
He crossed him over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that was brutal.
I mean, there was another play that just more innocuous, like a typical play. Trey Moore grabbed 240-pound Trey Moore, grabbed 330-pound Trey Zune, and just ragdolled him on a run play.
Yeah.
I mean, just physically dominated and worked over. And it's just funny. It's always the chatty guy that just gets worked over in these games. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's and I was watching Zune in the SEC media days because I always pay attention to who they bring on media days. It's indicative of like who they see as a leader. But they were asking him about the 12-team playoff or something. He was like, I don't care, man. We're going to be in the national championship. And there's a part of that I like. I like the guy that's like trying to lift the team out of mediocrity, but to just like pinpoint Anthony Hill or whatever, that's generally not very wise in my opinion.
No.
It's always funny. All right, you ready to talk Georgia?
Let's talk Georgia.
All right. Before we do so, let's talk Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
All right. Georgia. We got old Joseph. Hey, Joseph. We see you back there, buddy. Good to see you. All right. Let me pull up the screen share.
We got some super chats we need to hit before we nerd out.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Paul Homer, is there anything to Georgia also having a lack of depth up front on defense? Could we utilize a similar game plan to A&M?
A couple thoughts on that. That's a great question. We definitely wore down A&M. I want to see Georgia's injury report Wednesday. And if they're down a couple of guys, that might be a thought. The other part is that, frankly, Jacob, Georgia's D-line is built differently. Right? So Nick Scourton, whose name you did not hear for the entire broadcast after Kelvin Banks and then eventually Trevor Gooseby dominated him.
Yeah.
There's no equivalent to that in Georgia. Georgia's a bunch of greyhounds on the edge. And, Jalen Walker, he's not a 285-pound guy, trying to pass rush down after down. That dude can go all day. So I think I want to see their injury report to see how much they're down. But, yeah, the real key to also wearing them out, frankly, is you can't go 3 and out or throw an interception on your own 30. Like, you got to stay on the field to wear people out. And that was a big part of the Texas game. We just had these constant methodical drives. Like, it must have felt like if you're an Aggie fan that our offense was never off the field. So I just think that's a big part of it as well, is you've got to stay on the field to wear people out. If you keep getting 3 and outed, there's no wear and tear on that front.
Yeah. Guess what, Paul? We got some good news.
What's that?
AR will hit you in 1 second. All right. We got some breaking news while we're on the show.
Ooh, we're breaking news.
What's up, Joe? We got the Cade Phillips flip.
Good morning, guys. How are y'all doing? So oddly enough, Eric and I were recording the video, getting ready to have this happen, and I got alerts for good old Hayes Fawcett on the phone, and it's like 5-star cornerback Cade Phillips has flipped his commitment from LSU to Texas. Back to Texas, exactly. And that was a really cool, a great job by Terry Joseph and even Pete Kwiatkowski, Blake Gideon. They recruited him as a defensive back, and that's how they got their original commitment. LSU tried to sell him at cornerback. Did sell him at cornerback, obviously successfully with Corey Raymond and a good track record there. But as it turns out, Texas made the pivot, recruited him as a cornerback, and you're going to like you're going to see Paul and Homer, all the football plays that he makes. 21.5 in the 200. He's got a 24.7.5 long jump.
Well, that's excellent.
Finished third in 6A in the long jump with a shorter, like a 23.11.5. And he's long. He's 6'2". Eric was talking about how he and I have the gift of being 6 foot even. So if some cornerback goes like, "Oh, I'm 6'1", and I'm looking down, you'll know Eric said he looked up at Cade Phillips' eyes. So he's 6'2". He's got arms, got speed. I always like the fact that if you're recruiting in the SEC, to take somebody that you may play against eventually is always a positive too. So Texas, you look at their cornerback class now, you got Caleb Chester. You got one guy from the southwest side of Houston and Caleb Chester. You got another guy from the southwest side of Houston and Cade Phillips. And now you have, Grayson Littleton from Tampa. Pair him with Jonah Williams, one of the best athletes in the country. And you're looking at a elite secondary class as part of a elite signing class.
What does that bump us up to now?
Ooh, that is a great
rankings
question.
Watch.
That's the only thing that matters. Not even
exactly.
Games on the field.
It's right. Dude. It's all about rankings. It's not about fit.
Yeah, it's not about fit. It's not about projections.
Number 3 now.
Number 3.
Are you winning in February?
We could. There are scenarios where we could finish number 1, right, Joe?
I think so. The
Justice Terry type stuff.
5 stars are always the things that weigh heavily in rankings and their algorithms. Alabama's number 1. They have 4 5 stars. Georgia has 4. And then Texas, Ohio State, and Oregon each have 3. So if you add those 5 stars, they really start to weigh, help in that algorithm. And that's who Texas is really searching for right now, or even high 4 stars. Obviously, those guys help as well. And then the average class rating, it's a little bit different. Texas still number 3, 92.1 rated prospect in the class across the board. And that includes a few linemen who are in that developmental pipeline that we like to talk about a lot. So Cade Phillips, you see him, he's not just an athlete who can run and sprint and puts on pads. You're going to see right here, he's playing some football too, planning and or maybe not on this one, but playing the ball, tracking downfield like a receiver.
You know what I like about him, and I think I have the right guy. I get very suspicious of cornerbacks or any secondary guy who only plays on D. Because it's like, oh, you're such a great athlete that you can't contribute to the offense at all. Like, can you not catch? Do you not have basic ball skills? My understanding is he's a good two-way player, and they play him on offense as well. And when they play him, he is a big impact guy. So that's always something I kind of look at, because I'm always very leery of the elite corner and has no offensive snaps. And you're like, okay, well, you better be playing for IMG, or I'm kind of questioning your ball skills. Like, you're not even returning punts, dude. So pretty awesome.
And then I don't know how strong their district. They're in the Fort Bend district, and that's up and down. That's a huge growing area of Houston, as y'all know. So all those schools blow up. I don't know if they're like one of those schools where it's like 2,000 people a piece, or like there's like 4,000 people a piece. But Hightower's been around for a while. They went 6-1 in district, 9-2 overall. Got eliminated in the playoffs, and big part of it, I'm sure, is Cade at the 6A level.
Cool, man. Oh, I'm excited. That's a big grab, dude. Especially to finish strong, right? Still in the mix, still after Justice Terry, still after Michael Terry. Who else are we still hunting down? The linebacker, Kellen Wiley, right? And then who else do we want?
Well, I think there's going to be
Michael
some surprise.
Fasusi is who they're after. And
Fasusi.
I think there's going to be some surprise stuff too.
This is as good a time. This is as good a time as any to point people to go sign up. $1 will get you a week, so that gets you tomorrow, today, the SEC championship game, the opening of the portal. Now is a good time, and Eric Naleen just posted some percentages about what could be coming down the pike and what to pay attention to. So this is it's a hectic time of year, and I'm sure I was just about to write something about coaches having champagne problems of preparing for an SEC championship and trying to recruit a number 1, number 2 class, but they wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, I'll tell you what, don't discount the fact that Georgia has got the same champagne problem, which is, thank God, right?
Yeah.
They're as distracted as we are from game planning and trying to seal up the class and deal with crazy last second, sorry, some random school entered the mix with a crazy offer to their uncle. So it's wild. It's always fun, man.
It's
Good
funny.
stuff.
Kirby was the only one who complained about it last year because he's like, well, I know I'm going to be in this game more often than not. So he wanted to get the schedule moved around. But, no crying from a yacht, as Sark said.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, Joe. Thank you for coming on, giving us the breakdown. That's always fun. All right.
That's why he's powerful Joe Cook, Connor.
Powerful Joe Cook. All right. Georgia. Let me see these super chat, y'all. I want to make sure that we're doing offense first, then defense. With the run game, you guys, do you think Sarks? Okay. Do you think we move the ball forward behind the line of scrimmage this time against Georgia? Okay, we'll talk Georgia offense first, and then I promise I'll hit your guys' super chats. All right, let's pull up the stats. This one was fun, Paul, because I didn't have to do a ton of research.
Yeah. Last time we previewed Georgia, we pointed out that this was not the same Georgia that was dominant, that they have major holes. No. That analysis was correct. It was not proven correct from a Texas perspective on game day, although our defense actually played really well.
Yeah.
The offense, the Texas offense just got dominated in a way we haven't seen in quite some time under Sark.
Yeah.
Maybe TCU back in 22?
Yeah, at home. Arkansas. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that was we're talking about 21. I'm talking about weapon.
Yeah, whenever not since it's been up and going. We have not seen that.
And so the crazy thing then is immediately thereafter, Georgia regresses back to their mean.
Yep.
Gets frankly whooped by Ole Miss. Struggles with Georgia Tech. These guys literally have played 6 good quarters of football this year, and 3 of them were against us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
yeah, and it's can they do it again? No problem.
I can tell you is analytically correct and subjectively correct.
Yeah.
But if Georgia decides they're going to show up and play, it's a different animal. That's all we can say. That's our caveat.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, we'll tell you what they've been doing. But yeah, if they have some inspired, in other words, the funny part now is Kirby has to be like Eric said yesterday, he has to convince the team that people think Georgia can't beat us after they beat us literally a month ago.
That's right.
Now it's going to be even funnier because in Kirby's, if anyone can do it, Kirby will be able to do it. But to be like, they don't think we can beat them. It's like, well, 4 weeks ago, we beat them really bad, and everyone talked about it for the rest of the season.
Well, what's funny is when we previewed Kentucky, A&M, Florida, everything we said about what they were, they are.
Right.
On game day when they played us. And the exact things that we stopped and we said, we're not going to have a problem with this, we had no problem with. the couple of things they did to give us a problem, we'd already talked about, hey, you got to look out for this. With Georgia, everything we said they were not on game day. And look, obviously they have the ability to turn it on. I don't think they can always turn it on when they want to.
No.
But if they are going to turn it on, it's going to be to win the SEC, which is meaningful to them, but also a first-round bye is at stake.
Yeah.
If they don't win this game, Connor, not only, I mean, they're going to still make the playoff, but don't they have the potential, depending on how things fall out, to not host in the first round?
Yeah.
If they lose?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's real stakes here for Georgia versus if they win, they're going to be the 2 seed.
But also it sucks too, right? Because if you lose your conference championship, you miss this week where everybody else got a bye besides them. And then you also don't get your first round off.
Exactly.
So losing the conference championship is actually is worse than not making the conference championship as far as resting your players.
There's no doubt about that. And for Georgia, there's real stakes. I mean, Texas, if we are not the 2 seed as the SEC champion, or we could be the 1 seed, obviously, if Oregon gets upset by Penn State, but likely 2 seed if we win. If we lose, we're still in the upper half of seeding. We will be hosting a game, and we're going to be either the 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Right? I guess we could be the 7, depending on how the committee needs to mess with things to get the right matchups.
Yeah.
We've already talked about that. This committee's not just going to blindly seed it. They're going to hunt matchups. So this is a TV product, y'all.
All right. Let's check back on the Georgia offense, right? Been a weird offense for them. Carson Beck has continued to struggle. And one thing you said about Georgia can turn it on, one thing that is interesting, right? So Alabama, they were getting beat to death. They almost come back. Really, that's a win in almost every other situation what Carson Beck did at the end.
Yes.
Georgia Tech, they came storming back.
Yeah.
So there's this, the only one was Ole Miss where they didn't have an answer. And even versus us, right? Whenever it got a little squirrely, we got close to them. They had that huge trick play and they drove it 80 yards up the field and kind of shut the door. Yep. So even though Georgia can have these kind of lackadaisical performances, they still have this tendency to be like, oh, we might actually lose. Let's play football. And so that's also kind of interesting with them.
Well, I will say this, Connor. I mean, this is recency bias, but I think it's notable. His last 3 games, he's looked way better.
Yeah.
Consistently, in a row. It's the first 3 games of the season that he's put together. And the evidence for that is just objective. 11 touchdown passes over his last 3 games, 0 interceptions.
Yep.
And only 3
he makes some nice throws, man.
And he's made some crazy throws. Dude. And he's also running around a little bit. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. He's that'll be interesting. That's going to be a different thing than we faced.
I mean, he was horrible against us.
Yeah, that was just which quarterback can play worse.
Yeah.
But he'll be sharper. But, man, we'll talk about wide receiver drops. Doesn't really matter if you drop it all the time. So this is still a really good team, right? They're 26th in the nation in points per drive, 22nd in success rate, so able to move forward pretty well. Weak in explosiveness, right? Not a lot of big plays, 80th there. And they do pretty good in havoc rate, right? They're not facing a ton of sacks. Carson Beck's tough to get on the ground. One, because he gets the ball out of his hands super quick. That's a huge advantage. But like you said, he has proper mobility. He has a lot of experience. So the havoc rate mostly came from picks.
Real quick on that point, Connor, because this is something that's actually gotten worse for him. And we were a part of that actually getting worse for him, but it's still not been corrected. From a clean pocket, he is still Carson Beck from last year. In PFF, he has a 91.5 offensive grade from a kept clean pocket. Okay. Under pressure, and this is the 3rd quarterback in a row with this kind of divergence.
This drop off.
We pointed this out with Brock Vandegrift. We pointed this out with Marcel Reed. Under pressure, listen to this. He's 25 of 65, 38% completion, 383 yards, 5 interceptions in 65 attempts, 35.9 PFF rating, 10 turnover-worthy plays, in 65 attempts. Do the quick math. About 15% of his plays under pressure, he's throwing it to the guy in another jersey.
Well, and the crazy part is how lackadaisical he can look. It's almost like he sees that he's going to throw a pick.
Yes.
And he still would throw, and you're like, dude, what are you doing?
So if we can get honest pressure on him, amazing. But PK may have to dial it up, kind of like what we did against Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
We're just going to have to bring it with Anthony Hill, with some of these guys.
You have to get him behind the sticks then, because he's like a second baseman, man. He's like Quinn. They're throwing screens a bunch, getting it out as fast as they can. Like him and Quinn are the lowest time to throw in the league.
That's right.
So it's interesting. Yeah, that'll be a trip.
So bottom line, when clean, Heisman level play. When not clean, he's one of the worst quarterbacks in college football.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, actually. The silent cough because I mute my mic.
That was impressive use of the call.
And it confuses people.
You're a pro broadcaster, man.
Oh, dude. Hands down. All right. So rushing offense. Etienne's been dealing with that rib. And that's been not ideal. So, and Trevor, man, was kind of the key to their offensive success versus us, man. He was able to break some tackles. He was able to get some screens.
He was the MVP of that game.
Yeah, I thought Etienne
for their offense. Their defense had a different level. But
everyone was the MVP of the defense.
Is he going to be back?
I don't know. So that's where it's like we got to figure out. I think Kirby said yesterday that they're hopeful he's back or something along those lines.
He's a difference maker.
It's important. If he's in this game, it matters. And him not playing is absolutely beneficial to Texas. But it's been the Nate Frazier show the past few weeks. And you know how
Branson Robinson's getting healthier too.
Yeah. Yep. And he's their 5'10", 220, smack you at the line of scrimmage guy. But yeah, Etienne is a big key here. It's going to matter. All right.
Is Colby Young still on their roster?
I don't know if – I think he still technically is because the woman recanted.
Oh.
Like a week ago. So she recanted, and so I don't know for sure kind of what's going on there. I think that's in limbo right now.
Did her recanting coincide with a bank deposit?
Yeah, that's always the sad part about a lot of those. Yards per rush, 82nd. That's not good. 4.1 is not good. They are good at rushing success rate. They're able to move it forward. That's important. But there's kind of similar to us, right? Really high success rate, really bad explosivity, which is weird with the Etienne. Like Etienne can absolutely break tackles. That's what's unique about him. He's this little fast guy, but he does like power back stuff. But you would also think he would have the top end that we're not seeing as well. Like you would think he would go for 80 as well with his skill set. But for whatever reason, they're just they're not hitting home runs. They're similar to Texas in that regard in the run game. We have a better yards per rush, but as far as like the profile, it's actually a pretty similar effect that's going on in the rushing offense. Offensive line, not very great. 80th in offensive line yards, a little bit above average in power success rate. So, but still, man, to beat Georgia and 52nd on like 3rd and short, 4th and short is pretty interesting. And they're getting stuffed a lot too, man. People are getting behind the line on them. So 93rd in stuff rate. All right. Let's look at passing offense. Love it. Still their number one guy with 84 targets, the slot, most reliable. Dylan Bell, former running back, turned into more of a possession receiver. I think he's also been injured a little bit, but I think he's back in the mix.
He's back.
Yeah. And so he's interesting. Colby Young, I have his injury as an allegation. And then Arian Smith cannot hold on to the ball still, man. I mean, dropped like key plays that could win the game.
I think he dropped 3 against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. So, like, they still have a huge problem at wide receiver catching the ball.
So here is the elegant solution to that they stumbled into late in the season. They have a bunch of good tight ends.
Yep.
And they started throwing the ball to them.
Yep.
I'm talking about Lawson Lucky, Oscar Delp, and Ben Urasek, who'd frankly not even been playing.
Mm-hmm.
Texas fans, you'll remember we were in the running for Urasek as a transfer because he had showed out at Stanford. He was this like downfield ball winner at tight end. Georgia wasn't using him. They started running more 2 tight end sets, even 3 tight end sets, and then throwing the ball to those guys on play action, and it was incredibly effective. They actually got away from that against Georgia Tech. I don't know why. And then when
they were doing weird stuff. They were doing weird stuff versus Georgia Tech.
Bobo's just not – he's not on the same level as Monken.
Well, even on defense, I don't like both their strategy on both sides of the ball for Georgia Tech were weird. They weren't matching personnel on defense. Like Georgia Tech's going heavy set. They're in nickel. It's like they were just doing weird stuff. They were just combobulated that game. But it is important. So these big tight ends, 6'4", 6'5", 6'4", getting 12 personnel. Hey, go 13, man. Really stress this team out, you know. And all these guys can catch the ball as well. So that's really important. So
also, Connor, when they go big, it gets us out of our preferred defense. Because
it gets rid of the experienced secondary, and
you get a secondary guy off the field, which is a win for your offense because our secondary is so good, and you're more unlikely to be able to play Colin Simmons when someone's going big and heavy and just trying to pound the ball. So
you need Sorrell and Trey out there.
You got to get Sorrell and Trey out there, which is not bad, but it's a different set and it's a different approach.
Georgia recruits elite tight ends and doesn't use them. Bobo is mediocre. Yeah, they haven't used this group as much as they should. I know that the Georgia fans are not happy about the lack of tight end usage, but
if they want to trade Oscar Delp for Amari Niblack, I'm happy to make that trade.
Yeah, we'll make that trade. But yeah, the tight ends watch. And I want to see if they go big versus us. I think that would be interesting. Passing offense. 34th in yards per pass. Remember, this is not like the Georgia of old. This is a pass-focused offense. Yards per pass, 34th. Passing success rate, moving forward pretty well, 17th. Once again, really bad explosivity here, 96th. And it's because the wide receivers, man, there's just not a lot of explosive, scare you wide receivers on this team. There's some reliability and love it. Dylan Bell can do some cool things. Arian Smith too, but he drops the ball so much. And then tight ends are naturally not a very explosive receiver. So it's tricky. Quarterback sack percentage, 3.94%, 24th in the nation. Pretty good. They don't get sacked as often. Overall, they're the 6th best offense in the country. They're better than Texas. Texas is 18th right now. So a solid offense.
Big part of that, they've really benefited analytically from playing multiple elite defenses.
Yeah.
So Texas, think about advanced analytics. It's not just your counting stats, your raw yardage, all that kind of stuff, because we're showing you stuff that's probably not blowing you away. But advanced analytics are saying against who, right? So when you play Texas, your offensive rating goes up if you did anything.
Yep.
Because Texas is highly regarded in the analytics. Same thing for Ole Miss. Same thing for Alabama, et cetera, et cetera. Clemson even, right?
Yeah.
So Georgia has played a lot of these high-level defenses, maybe 3 or 4 top 10 defenses, and that really jacks up your relative analytics, which, makes sense.
Yeah, it should. It should be opponent adjusted. It's better than treating everyone as equal. So their situational stuff's pretty good, right? 20th in the country at standard downs, right? They're not getting put into passing downs too often. That's super important. If I was an OC, if I had to make an offense designed to do one thing, I get rid of philosophy. I don't care about being running or passing. My one metric would be which offense gets standard downs rates the most. That would be the one metric I would craft an offense around. And that's what the Big 12 got really good at. That's why it was all the stick routes, the shorts, the quick slants, the high completion throws, because that's what helps standard downs. Third down, little sketchy, but still above average, 52nd. Fourth, they are good. Third down and fourth success combined, they average out to about 34th. Early down EPA, that's really important. What are you doing on first and second? If you have third down problems, you always have first and second down problems. That's what create third down. So you'll hear people be, this offense is bad on third down. No, they're not. They're bad on first and second down, and it keeps compounding to third down. So they're good on early downs. That's very important. I look at that too. Red zone offense, 14th in the country. So when they get down there, they're able to score. And that's what they did really well versus us too. I'm interested to see how we solve that. Returning production, 25th. Georgia, you can never really listen to their returning production because they put so many people in the pros and then they just restock. So this is what's interesting. Interception zones per game is 100th in the country. Not surprising, right? Beck was doing some weird stuff. Really high in fumbles per game too, 107th in the country.
2.6 turnovers per game. That's not good. And we forced 3, of course, right? We intercepted Beck 3 times.
Yeah.
And if you had shown me Beck's stat line,
I know, dude, it's
been
so
like
brutal.
Texas won by 30.
Yeah.
But we managed to underperform. Hey, you know someone who's not going to underperform?
Gabe Winslow.
That's right. You're damn right. Talk about 5 stars. This is a 5-star ad. And all you can do is dial this number, and you're going to get a 5-star committed to you. That guy's Gabe Winslow. 832-557-1095. Why Gabe? Guy's got a law degree, over 20 years in the industry. He's absolutely fantastic at what he does. He's also a mortgage broker. What does that mean? Well, most mortgage guys work for a company, for a bank, for a big bank. Big banks care less about you than the federal government. I can tell you that definitively. Mortgage brokers, on the other hand, they can shop your loan to 60 different lenders, have them all compete and bid against each other. Connor, if you have the opportunity to do a bid on a big project, do you just call one guy or do you get a bunch of people out there to do a bid on it?
Nope. You need a lot of leads.
You need a lot, and you got to evaluate it, and you got to go with the best. That's what Gabe is going to do for you. And then he's going to walk you through this whole process, hand-holding, encouragement, and of course, always being on the ball. He's going to close early, and you're going to be really happy with what happens. So give him a call, 832-557-1095.
All right, let's look at the Georgia defense, which was the main problem.
You want to hit these super chats real quick?
That's what I'm saying. We get to bring them back.
All right.
With AR. With the run game revamped, do you think Sark's motions and shifts will be more effective? Because Georgia was so keyed in on them. Me and Paul were talking about that prior to the show. I'm not going to be like the Georgia stole our plays guy, but man, that felt as close to they cracked our codes as it can feel. They just felt really psychic there. And if they cracked our codes, that's fair game. As long as you're not doing stallion stuff, that's part of the game. But man, it felt like they had us totally sniffed out on everything. And so that is the biggest thing. Was our motions giving us away? Were these motions within a certain formation giving us away? Is there a tendency there? And I remember after that game, Eric or somebody was talking about for the next couple of games, the coaches were working on diversifying signage or something like that. So I think the coaches felt the same way, that maybe the signs got cracked. So hopefully that's been changed. And then they also, most importantly, know that that's a really smart defensive staff. That little cabal they have going there, those guys are brilliant, man. And so hopefully, they can be more effective. But more importantly, hopefully they are not tipping it off directly.
Yeah, and Georgia is a staff, historically, is not averse to saying, this is the big opponent. We're prepping them 3 weeks out.
Yeah.
And, Texas was concerned about OU the week before. Georgia was, and by the way, we also prepped the hell out of Michigan in the offseason. Georgia was working on Texas and a little bit of Clemson, but frankly, they looked at Clemson and were like, we're not threatened.
Yeah.
So, and I just think that was a part of it. But yes, you raise a very good point. The run game that we've really been successful with since the second half of Florida, frankly, is outside zone. It's gotten better. It's better timed up. Trey Wisner, we've gone predominantly as the guy. He's doing a great job in terms of patience or immediately attacking a gap, depending on the read. Our offensive line is holding double teams a little longer, and they're just doing a better job timing it up and marrying it up. And one of the things that's bothersome about Georgia is their edges play outside zone incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
And their linebackers are freaking gazelles, and they get out there. Here's what you can do to work against them, and we did it some against A&M. Sometimes outside zone is really humming when you actually turn it into an inside run. And what I mean by that is outside zone, as you guys know, is it strings, all the steps are lateral, and you're going laterally, and then you're looking for daylight, and it's one cut and go, right? Often it will get extended out to the sideline and it turns into a sweep.
Yeah.
In that case, it's either going for -3 or 30, right?
Yeah.
However, depending on the front and how the linebackers play it, because a lot of times fast linebackers tend to overrun things. What you saw repeatedly against A&M was Trey calmly going, boom, and then immediately cutting it back in between the guards. So we're calling it outside zone, but 19 of his 33 carries went in between the two guards.
That's good.
Guard, center, guard. And that's a lot of it was outside zone where he's seeing an immediate gap and he's just pouncing on it. So if we have the opportunity to run on Georgia, it's going to look like that.
Yeah, what I'm worried about is like a lot of Trey, not a lot, but some of the stuff Trey would do when it wasn't there is he would be able to cut back. And man, Georgia doesn't let you cut back, like full cut back, right? Like there's no past the tackle. Georgia is really good at surfing and staying there. They're athletic enough. That's what I'm still fairly nervous about, our ability to execute outside zone versus this Georgia team. And the problem is, and Sarkin even said it in his presser the other day, it's like that's what everything's built off of schematically. So if you shut down outside zone, you shut down the Texas offense, unless you just start saying, screw it, we're throwing downfield, you know?
Well, you know who was also great against outside zone all year?
Gabe Winslow.
No, great job. Gabe Winslow is awesome at outside zone.
Yeah.
A&M.
Yeah.
And
that wasn't the case.
We jujitsu'd them because we turned outside zone into an inside run, the way we blocked it against their front.
Yeah.
So again, that might be the way that it happens. I don't think we're going to outrace Georgia to the sideline. Jamal Charles doesn't play for Texas anymore.
Yeah.
But we repeatedly punished A&M with a cutback or an immediate read cut inside. And that's something that we can duplicate against Georgia.
I want to see. The cutback part makes me scared. The cutback to the guard, I'm down with.
Yeah.
We'll see. I hope so, man. Because that's my biggest fear, is that they're able to beat us up on outside zone again. Do you think we move the ball forward rather than behind the line of scrimmage this time against Georgia? Seems A&M snuffed that stuff out too, and we quit doing it. Me and Paul also talked about this. And Paul just said, we're not going to beat Georgia to the sidelines. You know, if it's a tie, the defense wins in that regard. And so, yeah, that's the tricky part, right? But also our screen game is this investing process. So hopefully, if we're getting Georgia to fly to those screens 24/7, well, guess what? In the third quarter, when they fly to that screen, Golden's going over the top. And if we can hit it, so you're basically, it's like a loss leader on a menu, a food menu, you know? Like,
yeah.
You know, it's like you're literally taking like these losses, knowing that in the third or the fourth, you're going to get a touchdown off of it. Now, Quinn doesn't always hit it. That's the problem with this logic. When I hear that, like, hey, we're investing to hit the big shot later. Well, great. If we miss that big shot, all we've done is shut our offense down for 2 quarters. So that's the give and take here. But the screen things are frustrating, but also a lot of times it's to kind of prime the defense to make a mistake later.
So a fair amount of our screen passes are glorified swing passes.
Right.
You're just literally flipping it out to Jaden Blue or Trey and saying, hey, you're a better athlete than that guy in space. Make him miss and get 10, get 9. That's not going to work against Georgia.
Right.
Our running backs aren't better athletes than their linebackers or their safeties, by the way. They're going to fire on that. And what you saw with A&M early is they were reading our motions and our formations and firing like an automatic fire on that.
Yeah.
And that's when we had some struggle with that. However, if you'll recall, later in the game, we ran a more traditional screen. Quarterback retreats, offensive line leaks out. Their linebackers are in drops because we've already hit them over the top and in intermediate throws, and they're getting yelled at on the sideline that their safeties need to stay back.
Linebacker secondary is going to the sidelines because they think it's a swing pass.
And then you saw Trey on a 3rd and long get a 22-yard completion at the end of the half, right?
Yeah.
More traditional screen in the middle of the field, linemen blocking downfield. That can work against Georgia much more effectively than the side-to-side stuff. So what does this mean? We got to throw the ball down the field, y'all. We have got to hit some shots. And Quinn Ewers hit 2. He was 2 of 5 for 79 yards. Won that beautiful fade throw to Golden, who got
that sideline throw all year.
And then a beautiful out to Wingo.
Yeah.
for 35. If we can duplicate that, Georgia is going to have to back off. Yeah. And that's what you have to do with Georgia is you've got to hit them on intermediate and downfield balls, even if it looks like it's covered initially because they're very good at disguise. You've got to be patient with it. You got to protect. You got to stand strong in the pocket and then deliver an accurate ball. If you think we're going to dink and dunk Georgia, it's going to be a rude awakening yet again.
Yeah, and I was watching Brooks, the film guy. He's a Georgia, covers Georgia. But he did a good job because a lot of people were saying, like, Georgia plays two high safeties. Sometimes they go cover two, but everyone plays two high safeties now. They're going to cover three. One of the safeties coming down. So that means you can hit the flats, but the problem is you can theoretically hit the flats. Their athletes can get to the flats in an instant. So that cancels that out. But what I thought was interesting with Brooks, he said it's frustrating him all year watching Georgia, and he showed it on tape. The linebackers and the nickels and stuff in cover three when they have the four underneath zones, he says they're just like technically dropping. They're not really paying pass. They're just like getting to their spot and standing there, and they are. And Georgia Tech was able to exploit that a lot. Yeah. They were able to get it like not a deep shot, but like the perfect intermediate. That's not really what Quinn's doing right now. Hopefully we can do that. But if Georgia Tech can figure it out, we should be able to figure it out. But I heard fans all last game, they were like, we couldn't throw it deep because they had too high safeties. Like they have a too high shell. Everyone does that now, but they're rotating to cover three, and you can throw against cover three. There's concepts you can beat it deep with. So that's the big key, man. And also anything with cover three is like, you're still going to be manned up on the outsides. So if you can drop that ball in like you did with the Golden, you can still hit it deep.
A good early sign for the health of our passing offense. Check Gunnar Helm and Matthew Golden's stat line. If they're getting the ball, I know where they're going to get the ball and what the spots are, and it's going to be little in cuts with Golden where he settles in that zone.
Yeah,
he catches it, and then he immediately runs upfield, right, and gets an extra 10 yards of yak. It's going to be Gunnar Helm doing a little bit of a late release, showing like he's going to pass protect, and then he's going to go run and settle into a gap. And he's going to be wide open. He caught 6 balls against A&M. He could have caught 8. So, I think that's going to be an early sign that we've got it moving. And it's not going to be Jaden Blue caught 5 swing passes, because if he does, it's going to be for like 14 yards.
Yeah, if we try to play that screen pass stuff, they're going to beat us again. They're gonna beat us again. So that's going to be the biggest part. All right, so let's look at the Georgia defense. Now, then once again, disclaimer: this is the Georgia defense when they haven't played Texas.
Yes,
right? When they play Texas, they're number 1 in every single category.
Right.
But when they're not playing Texas, they've been a all right defense. Nothing crazy. Of course, they have incredible talent, that kind of stuff, but they just haven't been playing up to their caliber week in and week out. It's not like 21, 22 style of Georgia's. So defensive points per drive, they're 38th in the country. That's pretty crazy for Georgia, man. To be 38th in the country and giving up points there, it's pretty wild. Defensive success rate, 36, still good, not elite. Defensive explosiveness, pretty good, but you can still get a couple against them. What's also interesting is they're 84th in havoc total. So they're not doing a ton of fumbles, interceptions. Sacks is their strength. We know that personally. But they're not – and this is the same when we played them a month ago too, right? They haven't been this crazy like turnover-driven defense. Let's look at defensive rushing. Opponent yards per rush, they're 48th in the country, giving up 4 yards per rush. Defensive rushing success rate, 40th, so teams can move the ball consistently with them. And they're about average in explosivity, so you can hit a long run every now and then. Weird for Georgia. So I hope they can get Miller back. He's dealing with a shoulder. He'll be important. Nazir Stackhouse was slaughtering us last game. He would take DJ Campbell and just physically move him. That was pretty wild. So that's really important. Ingram Dawkins had a good game against us. Micah Williams was killing us. Of course, Jalen Walker was killing us. And they're starting now. They're starting CJ Allen, Walker, and Smile. We didn't play against Smile, I don't think. I think he was still hurt. Those three are on the field together. This is who they started versus Georgia Tech. So if you're Texas, you're dealing with a lineup of Michael Williams, Nazir Stackhouse. Warren's injured. It would be Christian Miller if he wasn't. Chaz Chambliss, who's a good player. CJ Allen, Walker, Smile, all on the field together. And then the secondary is not as scary. But that's a hell of a front, starting front that you have to go up against. And that's going to be kind of the trick.
Yeah, the edges, obviously, people remember Michael Williams, Chambliss to some lesser degree, and then that freaking sprinter playing outside linebacker. They gave us a lot of problems, but inside, Miller and Stackhouse, we struggled with those guys.
Yeah, for sure.
We've got to get better there, and I think that's where you got to linger on the double team a little longer in zone blocking. Make sure that guy's cleaned up before you're trying to climb immediately to the linebacker. Because I got news for you. Half the time when you're climbing against a Georgia linebacker, they're not going to be standing where you think they're going to be standing. So,
right. They're not going to let you come get them.
Yeah. They're not just going to stand there like dummies.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be tricky. I wonder how Sark will counter Georgia's defensive formation shifts across the DL on third down as well.
Don't jump off sides.
Well, but also those are illegal. And like they don't get called for them. Those delay of games, those full line shifts at the last second, those are technically illegal. And we do it. Everyone does it. But you're not allowed to do that. And so
you're supposed to call them for like inciting movement or something like that.
No, you end up with it's a weird one, like delay of game or something you end up hitting them with. It's super weird. It doesn't even make sense what the penalty is for.
But the premise is you're trying to incite the offensive line to move based on your late crazy shift.
It's essentially a visual false clapping.
Yeah.
You know how they'll get defenses for clapping? It's basically the visual version of that with everyone jumping at the last second. So it's technically illegal, but man, teams are doing it all the time. And I feel bad, man, because it's one thing if one guy moves and no one else is, but when you see that much motion, especially when you're playing Georgia and you're freaked out about getting beat, that's tough, man. So I don't know how you counter that besides telling everybody to hold their water, but Texas has been better about that the past few weeks. Jumping and like holding, like the beginning of the season, we were pretty bad about it. I think that's important. They got called for one in the Georgia Tech game. Good. Yeah, we got hit with one of those. Yep. And then A&M did it. They didn't get called for it, but it's a common thing. But it's tough, man. That would suck if you're offensive line. Yeah, they moved from a 4-man deal to the 6-man double. That was sick. You remember that play, dude? That was beautiful. That was beautiful defensive football. What you do there is you just got to check in. That just converts to man protection. But you have to be able to – Jake's not going to be able to communicate that. Like, we just have to know, hey, whenever they go to 6 on us and we got a tight end now, you're manned up now.
So not to get all in the weeds, and I don't want to like relitigate this. The takeaway from the average Texas fan is that our offensive line got whipped against Georgia.
Right.
Not really.
Yeah.
Quinn Ewers played terribly, and he had no pocket presence at all. He was literally like falling down, like because a guy touched his ankle, right? Or he's like running into the pressure when clearly the offensive lineman was steering him and showing Ewers where to step up.
Right.
Also, we run a lot of slide protections. Slide protections are good because they're simple. I'm sliding. We're all going this way. We're covering this guy, and we're not having to call out individual men. If you're calling out individual men in pass protection, you're in trouble, right? Yeah. However, when you slide protect and the other defense knows you're slide protecting and you've got a really smart guy like Kirby Smart, guess what? They scheme it up so that their edge ends up on your running back. Their edge ends up on your tight end. And
or if you half slide, they send their best pass rushing linebacker up the middle to meet your running back. Yeah, it's so easy to break it if they know it's coming.
And those guys got slaughtered against Georgia.
Yeah.
In addition to Ewers kind of wilting in the pocket.
Yeah.
So when I counted up our sacks, which I think we had 6 or 7.
Yeah. I think only like 2.
I attributed 2 to the offensive line.
Yeah, it was really only 2 on the offensive line if like you got beat, dude. It was
but the average fan sees a sack. So immediately in the game thread, when Jaden blew his pass pro, Torian York ran right up the middle and smeared Ewers right early in that game on a linebacker blitz. Immediately you were like, offensive line sucks, O-line overrated, blah, 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 blah. And it's like the O-line's not responsible for the blitzing linebacker. Jaden Blue is. Like, you have to understand the protection. You got to stop that, right?
Yeah.
Similarly, if the quarterback immediately drops the ball, drops his eyes, and starts doing this in the pocket, you're going to get sacked, and it's your fault. The quarterback's fault, 100%.
Especially when you're not a running quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're a running quarterback, when you pull the ball down, run.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If you're thinking you're going to step up and throw the ball, keep the ball up here and scan and move.
Yeah.
But Quinn was pulling the ball down, dropping his eyes, and literally like going like this.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're just going to get sacked, man. So it would be better if he just threw the ball out of bounds.
Yeah. It would. Yeah.
I got animated there. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. I agree with you. It's about this game is going to matter for Quinn. And that's what we were scared about versus A&M, right? Where they can be able to kind of recreate this. They're not speed rushers, though. Like
for reasons that we talked about,
yeah,
power rushers do not give us a problem, y'all.
We need speed rushers, and unfortunately, Georgia has speed rushers.
Georgia's got a few guys who can run.
Yeah.
They don't always run in every game. Sometimes they're bored and they don't really try.
No, dude, what? Yeah, they're going to show up versus us, though.
They'll show up against us.
It's us, and it's the SEC championship, right? And they almost got embarrassed versus Georgia Tech, so now he can lean on that. Like, Kirby has all the tools at his disposal here to do the mental magic on that.
I think he schemes to make them play like crap, so then he can motivate them.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, but it's going to be funny to how he figures it out. All right, so let's look at their defensive passing. 41st in the country, 6.7. I think that's actually better than where they were last time we played them. I'd have to check, but I think that's improved. Opponent success rate, 37th. Quarterback sack rate, pretty good, 40th. But not like it felt versus us, dude. That felt like the number one pass rush in the nation, you know? But it's like the other games, they're about 40th. Overall, defense, 15th in the country, right? Texas is first. So you have the 6th-ranked offense versus the 1st-ranked defense, our 1st-ranked defense, and then the 18th-ranked offense, us, versus a 15th-ranked defense. So it's going to be kind of an interesting thing there.
Our two relative weaknesses, if you want to call it that, will determine the game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. It's going to be
RO versus their D, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what makes it. That's what makes it. And it's really more, can Quinn handle the heat, and if Quinn can complete like 3 deep balls and only get sacked 3 times total, I feel good. That's kind of the magic numbers I just made up on the spot based on purely off of my feelings. But it's going to be interesting. What's good about Georgia? Their passing down success rate. So when they get you behind the sticks, they're pretty good at making you mess up. And that's because, right, they can dial up these awesome pressures with the couple first rounders they've got. Man, you just want to be moving the ball forward on them consistently, which is possible, right? They're 38th in standard down rate. They're not like great as a defense. But an early down success, man, matters. So can we get outside zone going early? Can we get 5 yards on those runs? That's going to make a huge world of difference for us. Now, if we're throwing a screen and getting hit and now it's 2nd and 10, and then we do the obvious, well, now I'm going to run on 2nd and 10 because I can't be in 3rd and 10. So then Georgia blitzes everyone, and now we're in 3rd and 8. It's like that's what we can't allow to happen. Pretty good 3rd down defense, 21st in the nation. A little bit above average 4th down defense, 59th. But once again, man, this is not Georgia numbers from the past. This is kind of A&M-y level numbers on defense. It's interesting. Now, of course, Georgia played a better slate of teams, so we got to be – the context there is important. Red zone D, not a very good red zone D. Right in the middle, 67th, directly in the middle. Sacks per game, 35th in the nation, unless they play us. Interceptions per game, 105th in the nation, not a great at turning the ball over through the air. So hopefully Quinn can take a little bit more risk. Fumbles per game, all right, 41st. But overall team turnover margin, 70th in the country. Pretty good special teams, 30th. And then a strong schedule, right? They're 8th in the country in schedules, and they're not a super undisciplined team, above average in penalties per game. All right, we'll see if any of that matters.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I love talking about our opponent. Obviously, it's a huge game for Texas.
No.
Like nothing we said matters.
Yeah, it's like it depends on which Georgia shows up.
If Jalen Walker and Michael Williams and Stackhouse and Miller and their two
getting their NFL tape.
Yeah, if they show up playing like maniacs, it's going to be freaking nightmare to move the ball on them. And if they show up looking like Georgia, that's looked like most of the year, we'll probably whip their ass and win by 10 points or more.
Yep. So you can go either way here. Quick thing, Julian Humphrey, who was a starter for them, portaled this year. So Daniel Harris is now starting at corner, or has been, and that's why he portaled. Dalen Everett's still at corner. Joel Aguero is still at star. Dan Jackson, Great White Hope, is at free safety still. And then, of course, Malachi Starks. He's a baller. Tim, Jade, and Caleb Downs for Thorpe. So Malachi Starks, of course, is the real deal. So this defense is, man, if they're not playing lazy and playing to their max thing, this has an awesome collection of NFL talent, early rounders. This game is ours as long as Quinn plays a solid mistake-free game. Yeah. I don't think we're going to get mistake-free.
Yeah, mistake-free is not part of the
Quinn Ewers experience right now, or the Georgia experience. Yeah, so I would say limited mistakes.
But if we get a lot of good game management and some clutch throws on third down, we'll be happy with that.
That's what I need. Yeah. I don't need any hero ball from Quinn. I just don't need turning it over in our end zone type stuff. All right, Paul, let's do the conference championships real quick, and then let's
go.
Let's do it. Pretty cool, man. 11-1 conference championship in the SEC. Pretty nice, man. We got to smell the roses.
Not bad.
Not bad. All right, Iowa State, Arizona State. Someone asked earlier, hey, did I watch more Arizona State? Because I hadn't watched them since Texas State. And someone was telling me, hey, they got a lot better. No, I have not watched them since. So I will be watching Arizona State versus Iowa State. But I'll take your word for it. We got a smart chat. So if you tell me that Arizona State's looking a lot better and growing throughout the season, I believe you. But first, Big 12. Matt Campbell, you made it, brother.
He did it.
Iowa State versus Arizona State. Arizona State being a 2.5-point favorite. What are you thinking, Paul?
Well, so what's funny about Matt Campbell is people are like, this is his first 10-win season. And it's like, yeah, there's no Texas and no OU. And the Big 12 played a round-robin schedule, right?
Yeah.
So he eliminated 2 likely losses from his schedule.
Yeah.
And, Matt Campbell's previous best seasons were 8-4, 9-3, right? And then they beat Iowa, which is the other part. So yeah, they won 10 games. That's it. Texas and OU aren't in the Big 12 anymore, and they beat Iowa. That's your answer. So Iowa State actually does throw the ball pretty well. They're pretty explosive with Rocco Becht, so that makes them fun to watch. Defensively, they're struggling to stop the run. So that's why Arizona State is the favorite. Cam Scatterbo, if you guys haven't watched him, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's awesome. I did watch him versus Texas State.
And they've got a good quarterback. Talk about game management. He's sort of like a dual threat-ish game manager. It's Sam Levitt. He just doesn't make mistakes, and then he'll make big throws and then scramble for 8 yards when you need 7, right? And so that's how they've been playing all year. They're evenly matched teams. I don't even think either team should be getting points. I think it should be a pick 'em, to be honest. So
who do you think gets the dub? But I think it's a toss-up. Who knows?
I think it's literally a toss-up. And if you're getting points, you take Iowa State, especially if you can get a 3. But I don't think it's going to close at 3. I think it's more likely to close at like 1.5 or something like that right at kickoff. But it'll be a fun competitive game, like all the Big 12 games are. But you'll notice, like from watching SEC games, people aren't moving at the same speed.
Yeah. Yeah, and also just size. Like
Size.
When you watch an SEC game, when I was just like scouting Kentucky, I was like, this is not even a good team, and they're huge. It's a different thing, but it's still, man.
Arizona State has some prominent Longhorn transfers on that team.
Yeah, man. They were Texas West for a little while there, man.
Yeah, and so some of the guys at the third team at Texas are starters on that Arizona State defense.
Yeah, that'd be cool. All right, Big Ten, Ohio State, man. Oof. So now it's going to be Penn State versus Oregon. Oregon 3.5 points. I mean, you can see Oregon getting upset. I'm just like, dude, I'll never buy Penn State stock. Over my dead body will I believe in Penn State. So
you don't believe in big game, James?
No, and there's no evidence to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I like Oregon in this game. It's going to be probably 70-30 Penn State crowd, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that helps elevate them. I do like that they have Total Nicky at offensive coordinator now, and he's going to be in his bag scheming up stuff.
Isn't he interviewing for West Virginia too as like HC? Like they're talking about.
I don't.
Or is that agent work? Is that agent work to get?
It could be agent retention work, right? Yeah. Trying to get his salary jacked up, but we'll see. Don't you know Jimbo Fisher is going to be the head coach at West Virginia, Connor? Haven't you heard that?
Yeah.
I don't know why that dude would take a job. He's making money.
I was gonna say, but also you can't, right? Like, don't they normally have a clause where, like, if they're buying you out, you have to wait till it gets below a certain amount, or you forfeit your buyout?
It depends on the contract. I don't think he has that. I think there might be an offset though, so I don't think he's greatly incentivized to do that. Also, I think it'd be a bad hire for West Virginia, to tell you the truth. But
yeah,
I like Oregon here. 3.5 does make it interesting. I mean, that is interesting. Penn State. They don't get blown out because there is a lot of talent on that roster, like just infrastructure type guys, not flashy dudes necessarily. Yeah. The thing I'm concerned about with Oregon is they're all healthy now, and I think that's going to be a problem for Penn State. And they're also playing in a dome. Who does that play to?
Yeah, and well, it actually helps Oregon because they're.
That's what I mean. Who's faster?
Yeah. Penn State would want to freeze them out.
Yep.
All right. Clemson versus SMU.
That's unbelievable.
Isn't that crazy? Because I hate Clemson. And SMU
had a disappointing season and backdoored their way in because of Syracuse beating Miami. Yeah. SMU played one of the easiest schedules that you'll find, playing in the ACC.
Yeah. And
they won games and they played good ball and they did it all for free, Connor. They haven't received a dime.
I know, dude. But honestly, man, shouts out to them, man. Like, if you're going to take that shot to be able to win the league, I mean, I want to hate on SMU there, but hey, man, congrats, guys. Like, good stuff. Who do you think? You think SMU is the favorite? You believe that?
Well, yeah, I think they're probably the better team on a neutral, but this isn't a neutral. They're playing in Charlotte.
Oh, they're playing in Charlotte.
And also, SMU has no fans.
Yeah.
Have you ever met an SMU fan out in the wild?
No, but I'm also from the middle class.
All right. Well, fair enough. But, I mean, this is being played in Charlotte. It's driving distance from Clemson. So it's going to be a Clemson crowd. Clemson has not responded well to playing good teams this year, but Clemson's also not terrible. And we don't really know how good SMU is. So it's going to be an interesting game. One interesting thing, the way you could play this, SMU to make the playoffs is plus 225, plus 250 at different online books. You could put a little bit of money at an inflated payout for basically Clemson to upset them by betting not on Clemson, but on SMU to make the playoffs.
A little arbitrage.
And do a little arbitrage where then you take SMU money line so that you can cover your bet if SMU wins. But if Clemson wins, it's just pure profit. If that makes sense to y'all, that might be a way to arbitrage this. And, I don't think you're going to get burned because I don't think a SMU that takes a loss in this game is going to make the playoff. I don't see that happening. I'd see the committee putting Alabama in.
Yeah. Yep. All right. And then the most funny one, UNLV versus Boise State, because if Boise State wins this, they are likely forcing the Big 12 out of getting the 4th seed, and Boise State will actually get a first-round bye, which is insane. But
that is exactly right. And so depending be careful what you wish for, Texas, depending on where you want to be seated, because you could end up, there are ways that if you're the 5 seed,
you play
your
Alabama.
2 games could be against Boise State and Iowa State.
Yeah, but you could also end up playing Bama if you're
That's right.
So,
that's what I'm saying. Be careful what you wish for, because you don't know how it's going to fall. UNLV and Boise State already played, and they were at UNLV, and Boise State won that game. This game is being played at the Smurf Turf. So in these more minor conferences, you get to host the title game, right?
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. So this is on the Smurf Turf. I think this line has actually gone down to 3.5, which is interesting. Boise State has not been playing great recently. I'm not sure if you've been following them, but the same team that took Oregon down to the wire in Eugene, they really struggled with Nevada, choked the goat, and they really struggled with Wyoming, who is awful. So this is going to be a more interesting game than I think people imagine. And UNLV, Sean, Marion will be in his bag with all sorts of crazy shifts and run plays and awesome stuff. So it'll be a fun game and entertaining.
Coach Doug.
Charlie likes SMU. All right.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
And of course,
defense is the most underrated part of that team. They're actually pretty legit.
Yeah, I'll say, Coach is rooting for UNLV.
Oh, that's darn right he is.
Which I am too.
We'll see if Haj Malik can become a UNLV legend.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's what I talked about yesterday on the show, but Joey McGuire made a good point that if SMU wins, that's their first year in the conference, they won the ACC. If Texas wins first year in the SEC, they won. If Oregon wins, it's their first year in the Big Ten, they won. If Arizona State wins, it's their first time in the Big 12, they won. And it's pretty interesting that potentially the conference championships could have all been from a different conference the previous year.
Cool story, Joey.
Well, that was Joey's way of saying, well, see, the Big 12 and the SEC are equal.
That's what he was trying to imply.
Yeah, that's what he was. So he was absolutely stumping there and trying to politic for the Big 12. Take that part away. Just take the interesting fun fact of in what year did the conferences change and everybody won? It'll be a good factoid.
He was arguing for 3 Big 12 teams making the playoff.
88 is great. Yeah, he is. He played great versus A&M. That was wild. Georgia played great against Clemson. Tennessee, sure up and down, but don't underestimate them. Even when they're off, they find ways. Resilient teams. Trust me, we are not underestimating them.
Yeah, we saw them play against us. We're aware.
There's no underestimation. Now, we wish we could have been any other team. If we were wearing a different jersey, I would underestimate them.
It was 23-0 at halftime. We're aware.
Yeah, they beat us. So we're not underestimating. That would not be a wise thing to do. It's a good team. All right. Paul, we went a little long again, but we just like football. We can't help it. We just like football.
We're just all ball, Connor.
Yeah, we're just ball knowers.
Ball's wrong. We don't want to be right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, the chat was great. Exemplary as always. Thanks to y'all for participating.
Yeah, absolutely. Fans, thank you. Paul, thank you. And y'all have a wonderful Tuesday. We'll be back tomorrow. It'll be me and Ian doing some schematics, but it'll actually be a different format because Eric's going to come on with us as well because it's National Signing Day. So it's going to have a lot more of a recruiting angle. We're going to get Ian to kind of talk about the players that he likes, position fits, all that kind of stuff. So come hang out because tomorrow is the start of the National Signing Day period. Fans, thank you. Hook 'em.